All right, I want to show you what the graph of y equals arc sine looks like. We could create a table of values, but I don't want to do that. I actually want to show you the graph based on its inverse, so based off of the graph of sine. I'm particularly terrible at this, so let me give this a try. We know that sine goes through the origin, okay, up, and then of course it keeps going, and then it's going to go down, and it's keep going. You get the idea. Now we have to restrict it, okay, in order to have an inverse. It's got to look something like that. And then to get an inverse function, we have to reflect it across the line y equals x. So when we do that, this graph ends up looking something like this. Okay, and it just stops. It doesn't have asymptotes. Okay, so that's what the graph of arc sine looks like. Let me show you this on Desmos. It's a whole lot clearer. Okay, what I actually just did. So here's sine. We have to restrict it so that we pass the horizontal line test. And then we want to reflect that across the line, y equals x. So here's our arc sine function. And I'll take away that other stuff so you can see it real good. Okay, that's arc sine graph, and that's it. We only get that tiny piece of it because it has such a restricted domain. Okay, now we really don't graph it that often, but I did want to show it to you. So we have talked about how sine, remember our sine function looks like this, and we have to restrict here to make it pass the horizontal line test. Okay, so we're restricting from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Let's jump down here to tangent. Remember, our tangent graph is, seaweed. It looks like this. In order to pass the vertical line test, we need to restrict it to just one seaweed. So it is also restricted from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. Now, the one that's different is cosine. We'll squeeze that in down here. Cosine starts at the crest, and it looks like this. So in order for that to pass the horizontal line test, we restrict from here to here, which is from 0 to pi. Okay, so arc cosine is a little bit different. Now, there's a nice little way to remember this, and it's not here. You might want to add it here on your notes, okay? Notice that sine, we said, was from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, so it was in these two quadrants. Tangent was the same, these two quadrants. Cosine was from 0 to pi. So we are never in the third quadrant. Now, anytime you're trying to find the arc sine, arc cosine, arc tangent of a positive number, you're going to be in the first quadrant, okay? That's where you're going to draw your triangle. If it's a negative number and it's sine or tangent, you'll be in the fourth quadrant. And then if it's a negative angle and it's cosine, you'll be here. So instead of that all students take classes acronym, this one's CAST. And that's going to help us on the next problems knowing where to draw all of these. So I'll show you that in these next ones. Got some weird things following us here. Let's get those out of the way. All right, so we're going to draw these triangles in the correct quadrant. I want to start with B. I know I'm going to do these in a weird order just because. So arc cosine of root 2 over 2. So again, I want you to think about CAST. Nothing ever in the third quadrant when we're dealing with inverses. And it's positive. We're doing arc cosine, but it's positive. So that's going to be here in the first quadrant. So that's what we're going to draw this triangle. Now, you can see root 2 over 2. That's the same thing as 1 over root 2. So it might be easier to label your sides that way, 1 and root 2. And you probably recognize that triangle. That's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay, this is 45 degrees, which is pi over 4. And that's our answer. The arc cosine of root 2 over 2 is pi over 4. All right, let's skip over to D. I want to do that one next. So we're never going to draw in the third quadrant. We're thinking about CAST. This is tangent, and it's negative. So you're going to draw this triangle in the fourth quadrant. We have opposite and adjacent. And we recognize that that is a negative 45 degree angle. So negative pi over 4. Okay, let's go back to A. So we're going to draw this triangle, never in quadrant 3. We're thinking about cast because these are inverses. Inverse cosine of -1. That's a negative value and it's cosine, so it needs to be over here in this quadrant. So we have adjacent and hypotenuse. Now, we don't recognize that one, but if we use the Pythagorean theorem, we can see that this side is 0. So what this means is these two sides of the triangle are the same and this side's 0. So we're actually smashed all the way over here. And our answer is pi. And for our last one, arctangent of 0. So we're thinking about cast. Now 0, so it's not positive or negative. Go ahead and just draw it in the first quadrant. That's fine. So we have opposite side is 0 and 1. If you do the Pythagorean theorem, that's also 1. So this is another triangle that these two sides are the same and that side's 0, which means this triangle is smashed all the way down right here. And our answer is 0.